Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my BookTube Spin TBR video for the second quarter of 2023. The BookTube Spin was a big TBR game brought to BookTube by Rick McDonnell. I'll link to his channel down below. I believe he brought it from the blogging, bookverse, and the point is to create a list of 20 books that you want to read. I think it started as classics. And then, after you create that list is when you or somebody else will spin a digital wheel and you have to read the book that the wheel lands on. It's a numerical digital wheel. And so I played along with most of his spins, and then he has since left BookTube, and I decided starting last quarter to take on the mantle for myself and anyone else who likes to play, because I was having a lot of fun with it. So the way I've been playing is that I have a list of 20 books in 4 categories. The categories don't change. I start with Jewish fiction, then I go to general fiction, then I go to science fiction, and then I go to fantasy. And I have been starting to spin the wheel 3 times, even though I'm only going to read 1 book in the coming quarter. But my intent with that is that I want to sort of diversify my reading list and have a chance to read from, the segment of books that I read from the least recently. For example, here is the book that I read last quarter, Strangers with the Same Dream by Alison Pick, which came from my Jewish fiction grouping. And here is a list of basically a bunch of the most recent spins that I've landed on. And so, as you can see, my least recent spin that I read the longest ago came from science fiction. So I'm really hoping to get a science fiction spin, or if not that, maybe general fiction. So we'll see what the wheel does for me. But yeah, that's what I'm going for this quarter, and I hope anybody who would like to play along will find something good out of the numbers I spin. But before I get to that, I'm just going to give a brief recap of the 20 books I have in contention. Technically, my science fiction and fantasy lists are the same as last quarter, and I've made a few changes to my Jewish fiction and general fiction lists, just because my TBR is so long, so I just want to keep things fresh. And so without further ado, here I go. Starting with Jewish fiction, book number 1 is Queen for a Day by Maxine Rosaler. This is a novel and stories about a culturally Jewish woman, and she's a part of a group of mothers struggling with their autistic kids. Number 2 is Not Our Kind by Kitty Zeldis. In the late 1940s, a Jewish American schoolteacher takes a job with a rich, waspy family, where she's still not quite welcome. Book 3 is Wild Milk, Stories by Sabrina Ara Mark, a surreal collection between contemporary fairy tales and Jewish culture, which is according to the Jewish Book Council review. Book 4 is The Lake on Fire by Rosalind Brown. This is 19th century Jewish immigrants that must leave a failing Wisconsin farm for the tenuous dream of living in the Gilded Age in Chicago. And finally, Book 5 is Willa and Hesper by Amy Feltman, where after an interfaith lesbian couple breaks up, they turn to different cultural experiences, including Jewish ones for Willa, in an effort to heal. Moving on to general fiction, book 6 is The Fourth Child by Jessica Winter. A devout Catholic woman adopts a 4th child from Eastern Europe when relationships with her oldest girl start to fray. Book 7 is Of Women in Salt by Gabriel Garcia. Spanning from the 19th century to today in Cuba, Mexico, and the US, this is a story of family, addiction, and secrets. Book 8 is Revival Season by Monica West. This is the story of a Black evangelical family, healing, revivals, sexism, and faith. Book 9 is Austerlitz by W.G. Sebald. He's a non-Jewish German author who tackled the Holocaust in this translated novel. And finally, book 10 is Transcendent Kingdom by Ya Jesse. A neuroscience doctorate student from a Ghanaian American family oscillates between reason and faith after the loss of her brother. Next is science fiction, with book 11 is Provenance by Anne Leckie. A fugitive looks to reclaim stolen treasure in space and finds herself embroiled in an alien plot, literally. Book 12 is Ancestral Night by Elizabeth Bear. A routine salvage mission in space goes awry when an ancient technology is uncovered. Book 13 is Pushing Ice by Alistair Reynolds. A rock cropper crew is tasked with tailing one of Saturn's moons as it breaks orbit and leaves the solar system. Book 14 is Dark Orbit by Caroline Ives Gilman. Alien contact on a distant planet with more of a murder mystery feel than my usual, but we'll go with it. And finally, Book 15 is Martians Abroad by Carrie Vaughn. This is YA about a young Martian girl who dreams of spacefaring but ends up getting sent to Earth instead. Womp womp. And my last category is fantasy, starting with Book 16, which is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. Taking straight from the cover copy here, two warriors shepherding an ancient god over a broken land to end the tyrannical rule of a royal family. Book 17 is The Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyons. A man discovers his fate is tied up with that of an empire, and he may be here not to save it, but to destroy it. Book 18 is The Vanished Queen by Elizabeth Campbell. A woman vows to take down a despotic king and, surprise, surprise, finds herself embroiled in court politics. Number 19 is A Queen in Hiding by Sarah Kotzloff. An orphaned princess becomes a guerrilla fighter and must assemble a group of rebels to take back her kingdom. And finally is Book 20, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. A young peasant girl discovers she has an unearthly power, but the war she fights for her god might cost her her humanity. Okay, and hoping this was a decent time to film in early morning as the light is being weird, but I'm going to try to go ahead and pull up my spinner wheel, and hopefully we will see the results together. Starting with spin number 1. That's 16, which for me is fantasy. The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, which I'm very excited for, but I read fantasy 2 quarters ago, so yes, again, I'm hoping for science fiction, so let's see what happens next. On to spin number 2. I got number 2, which is from my even more recent category, Not Our Kind by Kitty Zeldis, which is in Jewish fiction, which I read from last quarter. So again, hoping for, if not science fiction, general fiction. We'll see how the final spin goes. So yes, finally, spin number 3. Well, spin number 3 is Willa and Hesper by Amy Feltman, which also comes from my Jewish fiction category, which I just read from. So I guess by default, I spun 2 Jewish fiction and 1 fantasy, and I read from fantasy least recently. So alas, even though I was hoping for science fiction or general fiction even, I'm going to be going with the fantasy pick, which was The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I'm very excited for this one as well, for, the theme of gods and royals, and seems like my jam, so I guess I don't have much to complain about. So that about covers it for me now, and I will leave links to all of the Goodreads books I mentioned linked down below, as well as a link to my TBR Games playlist if you'd like to see more. I play this game quarterly, and then I also play my Page 112 game monthly. And speaking of which, I'll be back on this channel in the next couple of days with my April TBR game for the Page 112 tag, where I pick 3 books at random off of my physical TBR and then read Page 112 from each and discuss them and choose one winner from among them. So stay tuned for that. And yes, I should be going before I lose all light completely, perhaps. So thank you for sticking with me, and I hope you have happy reading travails ahead, especially if you played along with me. I hope you got good books from those spins. And I will see you next time.